Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fish Market Academy, where we teach you how to fish for gains. So in today's video, we'll be exploring the Astroport protocol, which is a next generation AMM on the Terra ecosystem. So let's get started. As usual, nothing I say is financial advice. For those who are new to the Terra ecosystem, these are the few ways you can bridge in, and you can pause this video to explore the different methods. So what is Astroport? So Astroport is basically an automated market maker that will power the future of Terra's ecosystem, providing a more robust alternative to TerraSwap. And there are three main key features of Astroport, first being that you can create a flexible pool to support multiple pool types, so I'll explain more about this in a bit. And you can actually have dual token farming when you deposit LP pairs into Astro generators. Last but not least, it also has governance and value accrual through Astro, XAstro, and VX Astro tokens, which I'll explain more in a bit. So Astroport allows for multiple types of pools. The most common one that we should be familiar with is the constant product pools, which is basically like your Uniswap, where it's just 50-50 and there is significant impermanent loss when prices of one asset moves too much. So this is the more standard one that TerraSwap also uses. The next one is the stable swap pool, which is popularized by Curve. So that's the one where you trade stable assets. Something like Mirror ETH with bonded ETH, they should be roughly similar in pricing. Or bonded Luna and Luna, they should be roughly stable in pricing, and these will be using the stable swap invariant pool. The last one is the liquidity bootstrapping pool, popularized by Balancer, which is very commonly used in token launch events. In fact, a recent token launch on Terra, White Whale, also used the liquidity bootstrapping pool for its token launch, and it was a relatively successful launch. Additionally, if you want to create your own flexible type of pools, you can do so with Astroport. What's cool about Astroport is that they have this thing called Astro generators, which are really just smart contracts that allow you to farm Astro tokens as well as the LP rewards of another token pair. So for instance, if you're farming like Mirror UST, Anchor UST, or PSI UST, you're able to get both the Astro tokens as well as the governance reward tokens from those individual pools as well. So you can basically dual farm. So how does the dual incentive work? Essentially, a user will deposit their LP tokens into the Astro generator smart contract, and then after that, the generator would then send the deposited LP tokens into a third-party staking contract, and then the user will initiate a claim. The staking proxy then claims the third-party rewards on the user's behalf, and then the Astro generator then sends Astro tokens to the end user. So in this way, users get both the Astro rewards as well as the LP token rewards from their respective farms. So what's the Astro token for? It's basically the utility token for the Astro assembly. So the Astro assembly is the governance of the entire operation, maintenance, and the growth of Astroport, and it's going to be a primarily user-governed platform. So when you take your Astro tokens and you stake it, it becomes XAstro, and then when you lock it up, it becomes VX Astro, and these holders will have the power to propose and vote on smart contract changes, upgrades, as well as treasury disbursement. So just now I mentioned about the staking and locking for the Astro token. Essentially, when you first get your Astro token, you can stake it and it becomes XAstro. So X just means it's staked. And this is a liquid token that can be transferred as well as be used as collateral potentially in Mars protocol in the future. Additionally, when you stake your Astro and it becomes XAstro, you're able to generate trading fees. This is similar to the sushi swap model where you stake sushi, it becomes X sushi, and then you generate additional sushi from the trading fees that is generated from the entire ecosystem. Users will also be able to increase the utility of their XAstro or increase the value of their XAstro by locking it up and turning it into VX Astro. So V just basically means locked up for a certain period of time. VX Astro also gives you increased governance power, which basically is increased voting power, where your vote has more weightage in some way or another. But more importantly, you get increased trading fees from all of the trades being generated in the Astro ecosystem. So this could be quite incentive if you believe that there will be a lot of volume in the entire Astroport ecosystem. And similar to the Curve model, with VX Astro, you also get boosted LP rewards, and this can be anywhere from 1x to 2.5x of the LP rewards emission. One thing to take note about VX Astro is that the staking rewards drop linearly as the remaining months lock decreases. So if you have it locked up for a long period of time, the reward that you get is high, and as the months goes by, the lock months decreases, then the rewards that you get decreases as well. So in terms of the fees, For the stable swap pool, also known as the invariant pool, it's about 5 basis points or 0.05%. So this is 20% higher than Curves, where Curve charges about 4 basis points or 0.04%, but it's generally still very low. And out of these 5 basis points, half of it goes to the liquidity providers, and then the remaining half goes to Astro Converter to buy back Astro tokens to give to the people who stake Astro in the XAstro and VXAstro pool. For the constant product pool, which is essentially the 50-50 Uniswap type pool that we are familiar with, you get about 30 basis points or 0.3%, which is pretty standard for this kind of pools. And from there, you get 20 basis points goes into the liquidity providers. So 2/3 of it goes to the liquidity providers, and then the remaining 1/3 of it goes back to the Astro Converter. So right now, there's an ASTRODROP event happening, whereby the community is being rewarded for Astro airdrops in order to govern over Astroport. And in terms of initial circulating supply, about 11% will be circulated at launch, and the distribution will be accomplished throughout 3 different phases. So phase 0 will basically be an airdrop. The link will be down in the description below. And phase 1 will be the TerraSwap LP migration, where basically you would move your LP from TerraSwap into Astroport. And then phase 2 will be for those who want to provide liquidity for the Astro UST platform on Astroport through their LBA, which is something that is new. LBA stands for Liquidity Bootstrapping Auction, where people who have the Astro token and the UST token individually will come together and try to decide what's a fair price for the Astro token. So right now it's actually phase 1, where we have up to December 20th, which is around Monday or Tuesday, depending on your time zone, to actually deposit your LP tokens into the Astroport. And when you're depositing it, you can decide whether you want to deposit for 2 weeks all the way up to 52 weeks. So I'll be giving a demonstration of this in a bit as well. And this is the phase 1 distribution chart for the different pools. Personally, most of mine will be in the Luna pool, again not financial advice. You can actually split them up into different lock durations. So if you want to go with 2 weeks and then another portion of it goes for 3 weeks, 3 months, and then another one could be for 12 months or 1 year, that's also something that you can actually separate and do. But how would you decide on whether you want to go for the 2 weeks minimum or for the 52 weeks maximum? So there is a helpful chart that Astroport have provided where they show you the Lockdrop weights. And here you can see that it's a linear chart, and when you provide 52 weeks, you get 4 times the Astro reward as compared to locking for 2 weeks. So in my opinion, if you have very poor conviction, then 2 weeks makes a lot of sense for getting the Astro rewards. For example, if you have in the previous slide, if you have any of these other tokens like VKR, PSI, Apollo, Orion that you don't have a lot of conviction on in the long term, but you don't mind being exposed to them in the short term, then you can consider locking them for a shorter period of time. But if you have something that is very high conviction, for example, Luna UST or Luna or Anchor UST, which you believe that they're not going to go away anytime soon and the price of it wouldn't drop by too much after 1 year, then you can consider doing a 52 weeks lock event if you don't feel like you're going to be selling them anytime soon. And like I mentioned, you can also split them up into different weeks lock for different weightage. One more thing to take note is that depending on when you see this video, you can actually take out your lock drop amount as and when you want, except for the last 2 days. So on the 19th and the 20th of December, you can only take out 50% of the amount that you put in. So that's something that you want to be careful of. But right now, if you're watching this video when it comes out, it should be still flexible, where you can just deposit and take out and just try different time locked and different amounts. Once phase 1 is over, it comes to phase 2, which is a new primitive known as Liquidity Bootstrap Auction. So at the end of phase 1, everyone that deposited for their lock drop receives their Astro token. So now they have this Astro token and they want to be able to determine what's the price of it. So on the other side, people with UST, they can also decide what they want to buy or how much they want each Astro token to cost. So they will come together and form a pool. And as they add onto the Astro UST pool, the price of Astro changes, and we will see what the free market decides is a fair value for the Astro token. So this is a pretty interesting model, which is similar to the LBPs from Balancer, but it's both ways. It's two-sided, where the Astro token owners will also decide on what they feel is the fair value of Astro, as well as the people who are buying Astro. Additionally, if you participate in this liquidity bootstrapping auction, you do get a one-time grant of additional Astro rewards for participating in this first-of-a-kind event. Okay, so these are the tokenomics breakdown for the Astro token. Essentially, builder token lockup is the team, so that's 30% is to the team, and then the LP is 49%, and this is basically the emission or the reward to incentivize LP to provide liquidity onto the Astroport ecosystem. And then you have 10% to the DAO pool, as well as 7.5% to the Lockdrop event that I mentioned earlier, and 2.5% to people that are eligible for the airdrop depending on how active they were in the Terra ecosystem before this whole event. And then 1% for the liquidity bootstrapping auction rewards for those that participated. In terms of the vesting schedule for the team, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 1 year after the start of phase 1, and I think that is around 14 December. I'm not exactly sure on this date, but it should be around there, and that's a date that you want to take note, but it's still very far into the future, and probably you have a lot of time to know about the vesting when it's about to happen. For the LP rewards, the emission schedule is actually a very long time. So if you look at the inflation schedule or the emission schedule, it's over a 12-year time frame, which is a long time for the emissions. And I don't think the inflation for Astro token will be quite bad. So the Astro token might be worth holding on to for quite a long time to come. So now I'm going to show an example of how to do the lockup. Okay, so the website is lockdrop.astroport.fi. Always make sure that you're on the right website, and the link will be down in the description below. So once you're in this page, you go over to the active phase, and then you can actually scroll down and you'll see the different types of eligible TerraSwap pools. So if you have something that's eligible, it will actually see over there for you to lock LP tokens. So once you click on that link, you'll go into this page where they calculate how much Astro rewards that you get depending on how much you put in, as well as how long you lock it for. So for example, if I click on max, and then if I change the different locking end date, you'll see that the Astro rewards I get changes as well. And this is an amount that you can actually change. So for example, let's say I go with 10, and then I go with the minimum 2 weeks. I click on this, right? I can also take it out afterwards. But so I'm just going to give a demonstration and enter it in here now. The animation is actually pretty cool. So sometimes it doesn't work and it might give you an error. So all you need to do is refresh and then try again, and it should work. So once it's done, you'll see the success page. And then after that, when you go back, you'll also be able to see your locked Astroport liquidity in this section here. And here, you can actually click on unlock. So if you unlock here, right, you can actually take it all out. One thing to be aware of is that during the last 2 days, you can only withdraw once. So don't try and withdraw like a small amount just to test, because you can only do it once. So if that wasn't clear, this is a timeline summary where you can pause the video to take a closer look. This video should be uploaded on this day itself, and tomorrow will be the last day where you can try and still withdraw as and when. And on the second last day, the 19th of December, you can only withdraw up to 50%, and on the very last day, the maximum withdrawable amount decreases linearly all the way down to 0% where you cannot withdraw anymore. So in conclusion, Astroport is probably going to be a pivotal protocol in bringing liquidity into Terra to create a capital efficient, decentralized, and permissionless marketplace for people to trade with one another. It's also probably going to be the largest TVL in Terra, sucking up the largest amount of UST and Luna, in my opinion. And the Lockdrop and liquidity bootstrapping auction that they've created is the first of its kind, which represents a new way for people to do token launches, which is going to be very interesting for the whole of DeFi. And I look forward to more token launches with this kind of approach, because I feel like the launch is generally a lot more fair in this kind of methods. And of course, ultimately, do your own research and invest with caution and only what you can afford to lose. That's all, and if you find this video useful, do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!
Baby fish, baby fish,